Good evening to you. Thank you for staying with us and, of course, for joining us for continued focus and sensitization, Kenya National Integrated Civic Education. And now, of course, the new government is in place and we are changing our focus to the counties and how everything will be working as the days go by. The KNICE group, however, of course, been giving us some guided notes and, of course, some assistance to understand what we can expect from our new leaders at the county level. And, of course, various counties are in the process of unveiling their cabinets and committees that will govern things at the county level. And we all knew on April 12th it was when the Machakos County unveiled its cabinet and, of course, the committee that will be running and governing things there. And, of course, showing the intent that it will, of course, be a county to reckon with. We're not just talking about Machakos County. We're talking about, as a country, how we will be managing our public finance. And, of course, this has been an issue of some uncertainty by many Kenyans. Tonight, of course, you might be saying this is a heavy topic to be handling at around 10:15, but no, I have two guests in studio who will make it worth your while. Right next to me is Lucy Kambuni. She is a senior counsel and she has been here before for KNICE, of course, with a different focus. Yeah. So you're not new to this.
No,
and of
not
course,
at all, Mark.
she's ready to give us all the details
Good evening
and what we can expect.
Good evening, viewers.
Yes, and we also have Joash Dache, and he is the secretary to the Kenya Law Reform Commission. He was here last week with Liz Tonjira, just talking about the transition process and, of course, how we can probably evolve from our national focus to the county focus, especially as governing is concerned.
Yes, Mark, and good evening, viewers.
And today, we're talking all about public finance, probably to put it into context, because I remember when we were talking about whether there was a time when Kenyans were really a bit upset about the whole devolved arrangement and thinking about whether they will have being closed out from other counties and whether the finances or resources will trickle down from the central government. When we're talking about public finance, put it into context for us as we go on today. We'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Again, why is public finance relevant to us as Kenyans? And really, one of the most important things is the fact that we must generate the resources. Right. We must learn how to save and invest. And then, of course, when it comes to generating that money, it means that we are talking about taxation. Right. And of course, we know that when it comes to the taxman, you know, everybody's heart beats very fast. But it's important for us to raise taxes, because if we don't do that, then it means that we do not have any cash for recurrent expenditures and for development. Then when we talk about taxes, we are talking also about equity in the collection of those taxes. Right. We want to widen our tax bracket, you know, our tax bracket in terms of tax collection, so that we don't have a small percentage of Kenyans carry the whole of Kenya. And then, of course, we don't want to overtax the present generation, because, again, there must be intergenerational equity. Right. We cannot tax little so that in the future we have then the future generations also carrying our burden. So again, very important.
But this is not based on wishful thinking or being idealistic. There are principles that
that guide that, and that is why, for example, the Kenya Revenue Allocation, the Kenya Revenue Authority remains a very key body, you know, even in this dispensation, because they are the ones who are going to collect all the taxes. And remember, the not less than 15% that goes to the county governments is actually from the budget, you know, from the audited accounts of the preceding, you know, just the preceding year. So whatever then is settled as a sum that is available for distribution, that is, of course, mostly, you know, from taxes, because we are talking about you know, the pay-as-you-earn, you're talking about customs taxes, and you're talking about excise duties, you know, all of that. And again, that is the duty of Kenya Revenue Authority to do that.
And this seems a bit overwhelming when you think about it broken down to the county level. Yeah. Yep. And this is where we're taking it. Will we have one program for all the counties in the country that they will follow, of course, talking about financial year. And we're looking at what you've just mentioned, equity in the distribution of the revenue. But there are counties that would say we have more resources than the next. What determines that we have equal distribution?
Thank you for that question, Mark. The whole idea behind the regime on public finance, as articulated in the Constitution and also in the Public Finance Management Act, is that we must ensure that as a country we guard our national interests. We must promote economic stability. We must ensure that we engage in sustainable development. At the same time, we must have systems for accountability for these resources. Now that you've devolved powers, functions, and resources to the county level of government, we must put in place systems to ensure that the resources that are devolved to county governments are actually taken care of and accounted for. That is why the Constitution is very clear on the sharing of revenue between the two levels of government. It does not matter if a county is richer than the other. The Constitution provides that national revenues or revenues that are raised nationally shall be shared equitably between the national government and county governments, not equally. Equitably is very critical, because it does not mean that what Nairobi County government gets is what Machakos County government gets, or what Samburu County governments gets. The number of principles that must be adhered to in terms of division of that revenue. The percentages, the Constitution guarantees at least 15% to be shared by county governments, which means in principle national government may remain with 85%. But if you look at the budgetary estimates which are currently being discussed in Parliament, which has raised a huge debate between the relations between the two houses, it's almost 30% of national revenue which is being given to county governments.
So it's good that you've made that clear distinction between it being equally and equitably, because of course of proportion of the different counties. Let's look at some, before we take a short break, since now we put it into context, look at some of the sources of this revenue that we are talking about on the national level and of course at the county level.
Yes, thank you, Mark. As I mentioned earlier, taxes, very, very key. And what the Constitution provides is that national government will have tax raising powers with respect to income tax, VAT, value-added tax, excise duty, customs duty, and of course any other taxes that legislation by Parliament may provide. And with regard to county governments, they will be able to raise property taxes, so the rates that we have been paying, for example, to the Nairobi City Council, that those will now be collected, will continue to be collected by the Nairobi County. And then you have entertainment taxes and you have service charges, and of course any other taxes again that may be allowed by an act of Parliament. In addition to that, of course, there is the borrowing. And again, when we talk about the role, for example, of the National Treasury, the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, it's basically to mobilize these funds, both locally and internationally, so that we are able to bridge that deficit that would be there, particularly in terms of development funds. In addition to that, of course, the fact that we expect, of course, that the counties will exploit their full potential. And that is why, for example, when you look at the allocation formula for the revenue, there is a 2% that the Commission on Revenue Allocation recommended and Parliament, the National Assembly, accepted, so that there is the incentive for counties to generate as much as they can. So that
healthy competition.
So those would be the sources of funding.
But you mentioned taxation, and Joash, you probably addressed this. Someone might be thinking there might be two levels or two grades of taxation.
Double
taxation.
Yeah, this is a matter that Kenyans are concerned about. But the Constitution and the framers were careful about this, has tried to designate which kinds of taxes can be collected by which level of government, as Lucy has clearly stipulated. Remember, county governments cannot charge VAT, neither can they charge income tax, neither can they charge neither can they charge excess duty or customs. But these are national government taxes. County governments may only tax property and, of course, then entertainment, and they can also probably charge for services they render. This is where you may find that there's a bit of double taxation in quotes, because when you say county governments are going to render services and they may charge for those services, and then national government is also going to render services and may charge for those services. I want Kenyans to understand that the functions of the national government are clearly stipulated in the Constitution, and the functions of the county governments are also clearly stipulated in the Constitution. So they are only going to charge these levies or fees based on services related to the functions, which are clearly distinct, all right, that the Constitution has assigned whichever level. So the issue of double taxation, I don't see this
and just to add something, Mark, actually Article 289, the Constitution also says that you cannot have counties, for example, coming up with taxes and tariffs, etc., that basically, block the free movement of labor persons.
Lucy, I want to take this up because there's an issue from Kiambu County talking about raising some funds for the county of Kiambu on paying toll. And we'll be able to address this and other questions about even a budget, of course, who will be participating in the budget-making process of a particular county. And also, when talking about assets and liabilities from the national and the county level, as we now move more into the county governments, how will this be inherited and managed moving forward? We're taking a short break, but Lucy and Josh are standing by with me. We'll continue the discussion shortly. We are all together in this growth, and no one is left behind, perhaps, because it does touch on the national economy, perhaps, if one county doesn't do too well. So is there a layout or a program that will be followed as we roll out, perhaps in the next few years, to fully implement all these structures?
Absolutely, and thank you very much for that question, Mark. I was just saying that the beauty with devolution is that it allows for experimentation. Yes. So any county government may want to experiment with these fancy development ideas. If it succeeds, then it can be replicated in other counties. But if it backfires, then other counties will be like, don't go there. But to answer your question about program for implementation of devolution, particularly with regard to the issue of public finance. Yes. This brings us to the budget making process. Right. The controller of budget will only authorize expenditure of public funds if that particular activity has been budgeted for. And before you prepare your budget, you must do a plan. And planning is done at the national level and also at the county level. At the national level, you have the 5-year long-term plans, you have the 3-year planning cycle, and then you have the 1-year planning cycle. It's this that budgetary estimates are based on. The same applies to county governments. So you cannot expend any public money without a plan, and 2, without a budget. And remember, the planning process is integrated. Yes. County government plans must be aligned with national government planning framework. So you see there is that entry point. Again, the budget making process is also integrated. Counties can only budget all right, for the expenditure of their own funds once Parliament has passed two bills, the Division Revenue Bill and the County Allocation Revenue Bill. That's when county governments can now do their county appropriation legislation to authorize expenditure. So you see there's a framework within which the expenditure of public funds is based on.
And someone is watching is asking who will be responsible for determining how the resources in my county are managed, and we're looking at who will be involved in the budget making process.
Who is involved in the budget making process? Of course, the county treasury is key, and for the county treasury you're talking about the county executive committee member. You are talking about also the chief officer in charge of finance. Then you also have the other departments under that. Of course, they are the ones who basically head this process. But for them actually to even mobilize and make sure that we have the resources, the funds, the people will have to get involved. And there is a forum that is going to be set up at the county level. Is called
budget forum.
Yeah, a budget forum at the county level, where you have all the members of the county executive committee sitting in that forum. You will also have at least 50% of representation from outside the county public service, which means professionals like you and I, the informal sector, the private sector, the civil society organizations. Ensure also you have inclusion of marginalized groups, including, of course, persons with disability, the youth, women. It's going to be a forum that includes everyone. And that is where, of course, matters budget are broken down, so that you then determine in terms of integrated development planning, what are we doing? Do we understand this process?
Is this integrated in the sense when we're talking about
towards building that, then there is also consultation at that level. And then in addition to that, there are what are called the citizen forums. And this will be at the level of the decentralized units. So you have a forum at the county level, then you have another one at the sub-county level, at the level of the constituency, then at the ward. And then, of course, our county governments have the discretion to determine how further down they will go, because we even now have village councils. But even at those levels, we expect county assembly members, because these are the persons who have been elected from the wards, to mobilize their constituencies, so that at each of these levels, the citizen knows exactly what is happening. We have this much money, we have to plan for this much, and even in terms of preparing, their estimates, so that they can, they can indicate what it is they want to spend their money on, and of course prioritizing the projects that mean something to them, are very important to them. Then that happens at those levels. So you can see that the citizen is central in all this. And what we would urge Kenyans to do is not to sit back and wait for serikali to work for them, because I think that has been the bane of our past history, just leaving everything to the government. We are the sovereign people now. We are the ones to get things to happen. We are the ones actually who carry out oversight, as it were, at the grassroots, because we are the ones who know what is happening to our money. Is there a white elephant of a project that has been set up, or that is supposed to happen and has not happened, or a project that has not been properly carried out? Again, we are the ones who will see this at the county level. So it's important that therefore as citizens we engage.
So when we talk about what we produce as a county, because you're saying let's not sit back and let's give it our all in terms of building, there is that sense of ownership. I own what we have produced as a county. And when you tell me that this goes now, this will be determined by someone else out of the county, is that really incentive to keep going as a county? Perhaps if I'm focusing on tea farming, and we've really made a lot from that resource in that particular county, would there be measures to ensure that priority is given to you because of the effort that has come out of that particular?
Absolutely, Mark. When we talk of equitable sharing, not equal sharing, elements of equity would include considering the county in which that resource is produced.
Yes.
So you could say that we must ensure that the Turkana county government or the Turkana people at least enjoy the benefits of oil which has been discovered in their county. But remember, these resources which may be obtainable from particular counties, you pay certain taxes. You either pay income tax, you either pay value-added tax,
right.
You either pay a service charge or no, you either pay a customs or excess duty based on that product, and it's collected by the national government.
Right.
All right? It's collected by the national government that at the end of every year, the accounts are audited, the national government accounts are audited. Based on that, then we share revenue equitably between the two levels of government, the national government and also the county government. And even among county governments, it's equitable sharing. So there are a number of principles that go into the formula, you know, for equitable sharing of resources. But I want us to look at this much more, a bit differently. There's the issue of conflict of laws. Right. A county may decide that because we are producing oil or tea, we are going to levy this sort of charges or taxes on this product. I want to remind our people of Article 191 of the Constitution, which says that where there is a conflict of national legislation and county legislation, and the issue at stake is economic stability of the Republic of Kenya, then national legislation will prevail, which means a county government cannot levy charges or put policies or measures in place that may impede movement of capital throughout Kenya,
yes,
movement of goods and services, and movement of labor. So even as we say that we are producing this particular resource and we're entitled to much more, we must be careful that we do not mess up the economic stability of Kenya.
Because I might be an entrepreneur and I'm in Coast and there's oil in Turkana, but I have the capital and I can invest in the oil production there. So
Absolutely.
there shouldn't be a special or increased levy on my investing in that particular county. We're talking about, we mentioned just before we took a break, the news actually was on Monday that Kiambu residents should be ready to be paying road toll, of course, to improve their roads in that particular county. There will be ways and means that they will want to improve the infrastructure, the services in a particular county. How would we ensure that it's not unfairly levied, or you don't have more charges on a particular resident in a county?
It's good to understand that the Constitution, the fourth schedule, has defined what constitutes county roads and national trunk roads. National trunk roads are the responsibility of the national government. County roads are the responsibility of county governments. If the government of Kiambu County wants to impose tolls on the uses of its county roads, then a few things must be done. One, the County Assembly of Kiambu must approve that kind of proposal. Probably it's made by the governor of Kiambu. Two, the proposal must not be discriminative. All right. Three, the issue of national economic stability that I refer to will apply. That you must not be raising this toll money in a manner that is likely to impede the movement of other people from other counties into your or through your county. Yes. So these are considerations that the government of Kiambu must take note of. But remember, the Constitution says the county governments may impose property taxes, entertainment taxes, service charge for services they provide, or any tax that is allowed by national legislation, not county legislation, which means Parliament must probably pass a new Roads Act, which allows for imposition of road tolls.
Lucy, you mentioned the participation of the residents of a particular county, and on the same, just as an example, to bring it home for the viewer, you have given us some comforting news that we will be involved in the budgeting process. But for a resident who feels that the county executive and perhaps even the cabinet of that particular county are interested parties in a particular means of probably in the toll exercise that will be implemented in various counties, they are interested parties and they will benefit from it. How can I stop this being imposed on me? Will I vote on it? What will take place?
So there is an occasion of conflict of interest on the part of the county executive committee, for example, in wishing to have a certain project move forward. Again, citizens have a right to petition. They can petition the county assembly. They can petition also the county executive committee. And again, let us remember there is a very important role that is being played by the judiciary. Because again, you might find that if the county executive committee, the whole lot of them are in the loop, and because they hope to share you know, the spoils, then it means that actually you have no one to complain to in that sense, because they won't listen to you. But then that is why we have the judiciary. And remember, when it comes to protecting the Constitution, then the citizen will not even pay court fees for proceedings that they file. And remember also, this issue of technicalities has actually been addressed under Article 159 of the Constitution, so that we look at the substance of what the citizen is saying, as opposed to locking them out on the basis of technicalities. So a citizen will therefore be able, in a very simple manner, you know, to go to court and, you know, and address the issue there. And you will recall, for example, Mark, a short while back, we had one of the consumer societies go to court and challenge the raising of the parking charges by the Nairobi City Council as it then was. And because they wanted to raise it by more than 100%, and there was really no justification given for this, you know, rise, when, you know, when, you know, services basically had remained wanting as, you know, forever. And the court stepped in and said, no, you have not provided the justification, and we will not let you do it. So again, the judiciary is very powerful in that regard, and so as citizens we should not lose sight. But again, there is a requirement that citizens be able to petition even the county assembly. But then also let's remember that the Senate is there to protect the interests of the counties and their governments. So again, the Senate, the residents, the constituents should call on the Senate. And that is an issue that would actually form the basis of a discussion, not just with the particular senator, but the Senate as a whole sits and debates this issue. So you can imagine how embarrassing it would be for your county to be the one under discussion because the county executive committee is plotting on how to steal our public resources. Very embarrassing. And then, of course, remember, if we have a rogue county government, the citizen may petition the president to suspend that particular county government, which means that the county assembly is prologued, which means that it's suspended, can't do any business, and then the county executive committee itself is suspended. So that would be the extreme, but it can happen. Of course, the other thing that could happen is intervention. If, for example, we find that the financial management system that is required under the Public Finance Management Act, and remember that is a responsibility of the National Treasury to ensure that around the country, you know, we are all applying the same financial management system. Again, if we find that as a result of that not happening, there is a lot of leakage, we are losing funds, and counties are losing a lot of money, then that would be a reason for intervention in the county governments by the national government.
Another reason or another issue that will be contentious moving forward is the issue of, you've touched on the assets, but also the liabilities. And just this week, Dr. Evans Kidero was talking about the debt owed to the city of Nairobi and how much it would help in raising revenue for this particular county. He's looking at going 5 times more in the revenue collection in the next 5 years. Of course, right now we're collecting about 9 billion shillings in revenue. How will this be managed, since we've come from a national, central kind of governing means, and now we're going to a devolved system? How will the liabilities be transferred or managed?
Thank you for that question, Mark, because I'm a member of the Transition Authority. I sit in the TA as alternate to PS Kibara of Justice. And the Transition Authority is the entity that is created by statute and given the responsibility of midwifing the transition process. It has a number of functions. One of its functions is to undertake an audit of all assets and liabilities formerly owned by the central government, government agencies, and local authority, with a view to making recommendations or now to allocate the assets. With regard to, and the Transition Authority is actually currently undertaking the audit, the asset listing of former central government and local authorities. With regard to liabilities, this is a very touchy issue. No one wants to inherit debts, but two issues. One, the Treasury, I know, together with the Taxation Authority, is working on a framework, all right, for resolving the issue of liabilities. But the most important issue is that public debt is a national government responsibility. And therefore, this is something that is going to be addressed once the Transition Authority has finalized the auditing of assets and liabilities, so that you know what is it that you are required to pay, even if it's national government or even if it's the county government because of formerly debts of local authorities. You remember we used to have those the white elephant or cowboy contractors. You are saddled with a debt, yet there was no construction on the ground or services rendered on the ground. This is why the TA is very keen on doing audit of assets and liabilities, so that a decision can then be made on what is actually verifiable.
So this is an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process.
But I would wish to add something there, Mark. You know, let us not imagine that merely because the national government is going to bear, you know, these liabilities, it means that we in the counties are therefore safe. You know, what it means is that we have that much less that is being shared out amongst the counties. So all of us as Kenyans actually suffer in terms of less money coming in, and that is why it is therefore very important that if any citizen has information regarding these liabilities, how they have been incurred, who is responsible, who stole where, you know, it is important as citizens to bring out that information and to go to the Transition Authority, inform the Auditor General, you know, inform a committee of Parliament, for example, including the County Assembly, because we must validate, you know, we must, you know, find out whether in fact these liabilities are real or whether they are just a ploy to steal from the public, which often happens in a transition period because, you know, we are some are exiting and we are coming into a new order, and so there is it is very easy for us to lose many assets.
That's why the TA placed a moratorium on disposal of public assets during the transition period. You can only dispose of public assets during this period if the TA is in agreement, if the Ministry of Lands is in agreement.
During this period, till when?
The 3 years.
3 years, from the 4th of March up to around 15th or, 4th of March 2016, 3-year period. You cannot transfer public assets. without the authority of the TA, the Treasury, and the Ministry of Lands,
right.
if the property is immovable.
Speaking of transferring, I have a personal friend who he constructs, he makes some dams in places, and he was worried when we're moving into now the county governments. He wasn't paid, but work was going on, and there was pending payment. And now who takes responsibility when it comes to paying him for the contracts that are still on? He's still rendering the services in areas of the country. How is it managed?
It depends on who he was working for. Was it the central government or a local authority? Because there's a difference. If it is a local authority, then the county governments have assumed responsibility for former functions of the local authorities.
Okay.
And legitimate liabilities will have to be borne by the person who has assumed responsibility for that particular function.
Yes, and Mark, there is also a provision in the transitional provisions in the Constitution, and that is, I think, Section 6 of the 6th Schedule, that says duties and obligations that will have been incurred as at the 27th of August 2010, when we promulgated the Constitution, continue to be obligations, it says, of national government or the Republic of Kenya.
Yeah.
So as long as he was executing properly tasks for projects, then he would be paid.
Right.
Yes. As to whether it is the county government which will end up doing that or national government, the fact is it's a valid claim, as long as, of course, he's not a cowboy contractor.
Well, I don't think he is. But let's take an example. Actually, this was in the news today. Not to take any side or to favor any county, but this is just an example that will probably help us understand how issues will be managed in the days going forward. Now, most recently, the Kisii Governor James Ongwae presided over the swearing in of his 10-member Executive County Committee. He is not pleased, however, with the Revenue Allocation Commission for slicing off the county's unit share by 1 billion shillings. Now, this is the kind of thing that will perhaps be replicated or be seen in various other counties. Slicing off the county's unit share by 1 billion shillings, what would determine this, and what are the measures that they use or the gauges that they use to?
Mark, I'm just wondering, how did he determine that a billion has been sliced off?
Yes.
Because you see, what happens and what is the Transition Authority is doing, and of course the Commission on Implementation of the Constitution, because that has been tasked with the duty of ensuring that even devolution works. And then of course we are now we have a Ministry of Planning and Devolution, is to ensure, and of course Treasury, the National Treasury, is to ensure that all the functions that are being executed by the counties, those that have been transferred as of now, there are resources for them to execute those functions, because it is a principle of public finance that resources follow the functions. And then, of course, what happened is that the functions that have currently been transferred to the county governments are those that were being executed by the local authorities.
Yes.
Then on the 1st of July this year, they are going to get additional functions, again, in agriculture, etc.
Yes.
Which means that during this 3-year period, a county government will have to show and apply, for the transfer of additional functions under Schedule 4. Remember, there are 14 functions under Schedule 4 that are executed by the county governments. So for those functions to be transferred, of course, in bits, because you can't transfer all the 14 to the county governments at this point, because they don't have the capacity. The human resource is still being built. Many of these county governments are still constituting their county public service boards so that they are able to hire, personnel. And of course, so you cannot therefore transfer all of these funds to them. They will not be able to execute those.
Yes.
So what is happening in the interim is that the national government is continuing to execute those functions in the entire country, other than for the portion that has now been transferred to the county governments, which means those functions have been costed. And therefore, what the counties have received is the the sum that would be sufficient for purposes of executing those functions. Because again, Article 190 of the Constitution provides that the national government must provide the necessary capacity to the county governments to be able to execute these duties. So there is no way they are therefore going to get the full sum of the funding that they were hoping they would get. Many of them,
right, you
will recall, came up with budgets that had huge deficits. What they wanted, I think Mombasa County had planned for 13 billion. I don't know how much they are getting.
Planned for 16 billion.
Yeah, everybody, you know, we all dreamed big, but then we had this much, and that costing aspect has to happen, which means, like Alfred Mutua is doing in Machakos, he's excited and asking investors, please come, come, come. When the investors land there, it means that they will have more service charges,
yes,
you know, available to the county. Those who are suddenly purchasing property and putting up property, then you have the property rates, you know. So that is how they'll be able then to raise that much more. And I think that is what counties should be doing. Yeah, really, you know, looking at their potential and exploiting it.
So definitely, I'll let you respond. Definitely, it's not a haphazard way that the Revenue Allocation Commission is probably determining.
Not haphazard. I wanted to point out one or two things. One, the Commission on Revenue Allocation is the constitutional body that is mandated using a formula to propose to Parliament the annual division of revenue between the two levels of government and also among county governments. You remember when the Treasury made budgetary estimates in the budget policy statement, which was submitted in Parliament, and then the CRA came out with their formula, there was a difference. The Treasury estimates was slightly lower, in fact by billions, compared to the projections by the CRA.
Correct.
County governments started doing their budgets based on the CRA proposals.
The 231 billion.
The 231 billion.
Yeah.
That they had.
Yet the National Treasury had proposed, I think,
190 something.
190 something billion. There was a huge difference. But I want to request county governments to understand this, that first, the annual division of revenue bill, which is currently before Parliament, must be passed, because it is those estimates which will determine what the national government will remain with and what county governments are going to get. After the annual division of revenue bill has been finalized, then you will have the county allocation of a revenue bill. That is when a county will know with certainty that for this financial year, we have been awarded or we allocated this much money. It is based on the county allocation revenue bill, which will be passed by Parliament, that county governments can then make their budgets knowing that this is what we have during this financial year. Not based on projections either by Treasury or by the CRA, but what Parliament actually approves, which I know we are running out of time, which brings me to the touchy issue between this power wars between the Senate,
the lower house and the upper house.
Because this came in the context of the division of revenue bill, which is the bill being discussed by Parliament. Two things.
As you wrap up.
Yes. One, any bill or any legislation concerning counties, the Senate has a constitutional responsibility to be part, to receive and debate. But then you have special bills concerning county governments. If it relates to election of the county assembly members or the county executive, or allocation of resources to county governments, those are special bills concerning counties. There, it is the Senate with almost the final word. Parliament can only veto a special bill concerning county governments with the 2/3 majority. Otherwise, what the Senate says, that's what will appear in the county allocation for each county.
So we won't see any form of bullying between either the Senate and when it comes to the interests of a particular county and management.
we shouldn't see that. And what I keep saying, Mark, is that, you know, they keep saying, you know, we are the upper house and others, you know, you're the lower house. And I'm just saying, you know, Kenyans are not interested in those theatrics.
Absolutely, yes.
Because we elected leaders, and all of us are important in our own right.
Yes.
Because if the county assembly is not doing business, it means that nothing is happening in our counties, because the county assembly provides oversight. They determine, you know, what we appropriate, because there must be an appropriation bill to be able to spend. So it is important that each one of us works towards supporting devolution. And again, let's remember that the senators themselves have a constituency, do they not? The county government, in as much as the member of parliament to the National Assembly also has a constituency to look after. So we are talking about the same county governments. And then in addition to this debate about the division of revenue bill, there is Article 218 of the Constitution that says that the division of revenue bill shall be tabled in Parliament. Now, Parliament is the National Assembly and the Senate. You don't just table a bill, a special bill such as that, so that our Senate can look at it and say, when it's tabled, it means that it's debated.
Absolutely.
And something is done about it, and that is why they went ahead and called for representation from the members of the public, and they received that. So in our view, let them get on with the business of making sure that Kenyans have a budget so that we can run, you know, with the counties.
I'll leave that as the last words of this session. Thank you so much, Lucy Kambuni. Get on with the business, you've heard her say. And of course, Joash Dache, you've been here several times also. Thank you so much for shedding light on this public finance. I have been enlightened, and I hope you have also been enlightened on this issue. As we move forward, of course, you are a concerned party from wherever you are and from whatever county you're joining us. Thank you for watching this K9 session. My name is Mark Masai. Have a good evening. Elewa katiba jenga nchi yako.